Hi. So this is a video in regards to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the complaint of how will things be paid for with all of the programs that she wants in terms of healthcare for all, tuition-free college, and a host of other issues and programs. The thing about these arguments is they neglect. Uh, okay, so her stance is this is the goal. This is where we want to end up. We're not at that place now. How do we get there? And that is where people say, well, that's the mythical. It's not. It won't happen because this and that reason. What's not being, what should be explained, and Ms. Cortez, I feel, should use as an example is the Affordable Care Act had to be a complicated uh, legal document in order for enough members of Congress to vote for it. The point, the gist, the goal of the Affordable Care Act was to make healthcare affordable, to fix a lot of problems, and even the first thing, legislation that was passed was not complete. And the reason why it was not complete was a lot of reasons. But something needed to be passed, and once it's passed, then the next year it can be modified, changed. Because it's such a, the healthcare system is such a huge part of the American economy and affects so many different mechanisms of how people receive their care, you could not have a right away, fresh out of the box, this is the thing that's going to fix everything. It was, this is the thing that in the future will fix everything. Right now, it's going to fix this. So, what Ms. Cortez, I feel, needs to better express is these are the goals. And how will she be able to attain these goals? She does not find herself tethered to various organizations or industries. So they cannot influence her vote or what she says on Capitol Hill. She can be a voice, she can be a beacon, she can be a polarizing point that people in Congress can rally around and say, okay, this is something we can start working with. The other thing is that once she is in office, she has the full support and abilities of all the mechanisms of the U.S. government to achieve the desired goals. She can go to the Congressional Budget Office, National Institute of Health, any other host of organizations, and say, this is the goal we want to achieve. When could we achieve it? What would be the way, the mechanism to start implementing the change in the U.S. government to go from where we're at now to this desired goal? And they would have to, they could use research from countless studies that have been done already, programs that have been implemented in other countries as well as the United States, and just realize, like, okay, here is the steps to go about to achieving this goal, and lay out a plan in front of Congress saying, you vote on this, these are the steps that will happen, these are the changes that will occur year by year, these are the parties that will be involved, this is how your constituents will be happy with the outcome. So it is complicated, it is a challenge, but that's why there's a government full of experts, full of people who have made it their careers to make things better for the American citizenry. This notion that a politician will say the government is broken, they're doing all these things wrong, therefore we need to get rid of them, we need to shrink government, we need to do this or that. I think that's talking points. I think that is just rhetoric that can rally a crowd, make some people think like, yeah, that sounds right, that sounds good, and invokes a passion response. But I feel it's disingenuous because, as we've seen in various states' budgets and policy changes, as well as in the broader United States, once the Affordable Care Act was passed, there was a lot of positive stories that came out. Yes, there were some negative stories. There were some problems here and there, hiccups, or challenges here and there. But those were few, and even then, those challenges, those problems, those people saying, "Hey, I'm not seeing this happen for me." It's given time, it would change. And then also realize, once the federal government said, "Okay, this is the Federal Affordable Care Act, we're going to make it happen," state legislatures then said, "Okay, we are going to change our laws and basically not comply with the ACA, not with the federal government. We're going to make things go this way or that," and in my opinion, blame Obama and the Democrats and use other rhetoric to basically say, "Well, here's the problem. It didn't work, and as a result, we can't continue to support the ACA." So it's a failure of the states and Republicans to follow through on what was important and what is the point of the legislation to help American citizenry. So what Ms. Cortez needs to point out is we cannot allow a repeat of, this is how we're trying to fix problems, this is how we're trying to make things better for everyone, and everyone has to be on board. And if you're not on board, just don't get in the way. Just don't, work to undermine progress or undermine people's safety and security. Because that is what we ended up seeing with a lot of Republican legislation. So I'm hoping that this is an idea, a message that can come through, that to achieve Ms. Cortez's goals, that stick to the goal of what will be achieved. Use studies, research, successful programs in other countries and in the United States as the framework, the examples of this is how success can be achieved. And say, I understand that I cannot make these things happen alone. I have to make Congress work with me. However, I can go into Congress and put forth legislation. Maybe people will vote for it or not, but we know now that there's Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, various congressmen who would support and work with Ms. Cortez to achieve the goals that she's laying out. That is what the American people need to realize and understand. It's not a pie in the sky or some beautiful dream that cannot be achieved. Anything can be achieved. How do we know that anything can be achieved? Look at World War II. The United States managed to stay out of the conflict for as long as they could. When they realized things were going a certain way, sent financial support to Europe and to China. And when they finally got involved in the conflict, they continued to send support to Russia, England, the Chinese, and then at the conclusion, we didn't necessarily get money back from China or from Russia in some cases, but the United States still came out financially stable and was able to help rebuild the rest of the world. So a massive amount of money and investment was given to Europe and China and other places to counter the effects of the conflict of World War II. And as a result, the U.S. economy and U.S. supremacy in the world stage, world market, remain for decades. What the Republicans have achieved is to unravel all of that progress, all that work, and to basically spit in the face of history. To basically, there's a lot of people who died, a lot of people who were kept from dying, and it's disingenuous to their memories, to the sacrifices made, and to the hard work and effort made by so many people for decades to see something better done and to achieve. So I'm hoping that this message helps and gives an idea of what can be talking points and ideas for speeches, and to help people say, when challenged, like, how would you pay for it? You pay for it over time. You implement policy changes. You bring everyone to the table, you negotiate, you say, how can we make a deal to make things better for everyone? Citizens, businesses, support systems, infrastructure networks of states and communities. Working together, anything can be accomplished and anything can happen. It's when you alienate and dehumanize even people and their ideas, and use rhetoric to make something. It's like, to attack something that should not be attacked. These are goals where the United States wants to be. There's countries who are number one in terms of healthcare and education. We want to try to achieve that. That's a goal everyone should want to achieve. And it's just bizarre that we're not achieving that. Why does the United States not have high-speed rail? So so as a result, California says, all right, we're going to build it, and we're going to make it happen. And the economy of California continues to excel. And the weird, it's strange to me because I am from the border, where it's like there is no crisis on the border except what has been created by President Trump and Attorney General Sessions. And yet here we are in California, very wealthy economy, but I feel like I'm living in a third world country because the infrastructure is not being maintained. We have a lot of health hazards and problems that should have been addressed decades ago, and they're not. And we're seeing, and also on top of that, a mentality of build houses, and there are no jobs for that, and it's making things worse because more people in Imperial County is adding to the pollution problem here, and there's no jobs to back that up. The only things that have been growing in terms of hiring would be the prisons and the Border Patrol Customs. So that is not sustainable. And in fact, we even have lost fields, agricultural fields, which migrant farm workers have been working because of the changes in water policies and shortages. There's tons of things that can be done, and in fact, I helped to build solar fields in those abandoned fields. Solar farms in those abandoned fields. So things can be done, but a lot of people for small work, or a lot of people for a small project, because it's building a solar farm it's kind of not that hard to do. It just takes time and the resources. But then once it's built, very small number of people to maintain. So, yeah, some of the ideas and concepts. But the green collar economy, as talked about by Van Jones, can be achieved. It's when I read the first 2 chapters of Van Jones' book to a group of people in El Centro, I believe it was a school teacher responded, "How will you pay for this? How will you pay for these programs and ideas?" And you pay for them like any other government program. You bring everybody to the table and decide how to balance and change the budget in this or that way. So it can be done, it can be achieved, nothing is impossible. And to think that, oh, well, there's poor people, nothing can be done for the poor people, there's sick people, nothing can be done for them, elderly, nothing can be done for them, migrants, nothing can be done for them, that's ridiculous and disingenuous of the American spirit. So I unfortunately believe that when a politician says the American dream, that is basically when a politician says the American dream, I want to shut off my brain and not listen to that person, or shut off my ears and not listen, because they're making me want to shut off my brain and just swallow whatever thing they're going to say, because they're trying to tug at my emotional heartstrings and my patriotism to make them think that their idea is this or that. My viewpoint from here on the border is the American dream. It's some idea in the past, and it doesn't really, like, if you try to apply it to multiple people, it doesn't necessarily exist, because American dream is the immigrant coming in, or is it the person who lives here and is able to achieve success? Because we don't see that. We see people who, they get a job, and if they're in a small community, they get a job, they are basically stuck at that job for life. In a city, a person gets a job, we'll lose it. We'll have to change jobs, change careers, travel as a result of the new job they're having to follow. In some cases, you will see the success, out of the blue, amazing person who achieves a lot, but it's small. That number of people, that percentage. So the goal of people in the United States is, we are not number one in certain areas. What can we do to achieve number one? How can we improve the lives of everyone? Not just people who are disenfranchised or feel they've been discriminated against or put down by whatever entity. How can we lift everybody up? How can we provide for everybody, and in such a way that people are going to have jobs. People are not going to lose their jobs. Their communities are stable. They can trust each other. They can love each other as Americans. And even if they're not an American citizen, love people because of your humanity. So we need to restore the love of humanity in the United States, in my opinion, because we're seeing a 26% of people who, no, they don't embrace that. And so that's a group of people who we cannot shun or whatever. We need to make sure that they understand that you are welcome and you are encouraged to join the rest of the country in seeing things become better. So I'm hoping this helps. Thank you.